So for this example, as opposed to the last example, when we read through it, it says, where necessary, give your answers to the nearest tenth. That means your answers aren't going to be nice values. The last one we could graph by hand, and they were nice values. Because this one says to the nearest tenth, we already got an idea that they're not going to be nice values. So whenever it's to the nearest tenth, you have most likely an option of a calculator. So if you had this question, it said solve by graphing, and you were allowed to use your graphing calculator, what we're going to do is we're going to graph the absolute value of 3x squared minus 3 into our graphing calculator. And then we'll put that into y1, into our first equation. And then in our second equation, we're going to just put when is it equal to 3. What is that going to look like? All right. So the first thing we're going to graph is the absolute value of 3x squared minus 3. We have to find our absolute value bars. If you go to math and over to number, ABS stands for absolute value. Push enter on that, you will get absolute value bars. If you have an older operating system, it will just say ABS. So that was hit your math button, and then go over to number, and you can get your absolute value buttons. I think you might also be able to get your absolute value buttons. Let me just go, if you go alpha, F1, I think, there it is. If you go over to function, you can also get it from those, the same place that you get your fractions. Okay? I hit the arrow key over. There's my fraction. Move over to function. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. So once you've got your absolute value bars, then inside you can type in the 3x squared minus 3. 3x squared minus 3. And then in our second equation, we're just going to graph, we're concerned when it's equal to 3. What that's going to do is it's going to graph the absolute value of 3x squared minus 3, which is our W graph there. And then it's going to draw a horizontal line where y is equal to 3. In order to calculate where y is actually equal to 3, second trace, because above trace says calculate, we're going to find out number 5 where these intersect. So if you, now it will find, this one's pretty easy because it all started us off on a point where it's already y equals 3. So I hope you can see 0, 3 is one of them. What it does is that intersect button is it will find the point whatever is closest to that cursor that you see appearing. So if I move my cursor over to the left, it starts on my blue graph. I push enter once, it jumps to my red graph. I push enter again, it asks me to guess, which you can guess in your head if you'd like. Push enter again, and it finds out that it's at negative 1.414. Just drag your calculator screen to your notes. So we already know that one value was at 0, and now we just figured out another value is at negative 1.4. That would be to the nearest tenth. If I wanted to find the other one, I'd go second, calculate again, number 5 for intersect. I'm going to move my cursor closer to the one that I haven't found. Enter once, moves to the other line, enter again. Then it asks you to guess. This time, I'm going to say, since I know parabolas are symmetrical, and I figured out negative 1.41, if it was symmetrical, I would guess it would be positive 1.41, and it is. So there is our third answer. So if you have a graphing calculator, you can graph one side of the equation into y1, you can graph the other side of the equation into y2, and you can find out where those two graphs intersect each other, and that will be the solutions. So I'd like you to try B on your own, and I'll put the answers up in a second. Okay, so for part B, here in green, in y1 you could type the absolute value of 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. In y2 you could type in negative 2. Now graphically, when we actually go to graph this, what do we notice? There's no intersection points. In fact, you probably might have even, now that you look back at the equation, what does an absolute value do? It always makes a number positive. So will it ever equal negative 2? No. So we can see both graphically and just by looking at this that there's going to be no solution. Now, just to see if you're able to do things and get correct values, let's just change this number to a positive number. I want you to figure out when it's equal to 6. And I want to see if you can find that on your calculator using the intersect buttons. So instead of y equals negative 2, let's just change this second one to 6, because now there is an intersection. I'm going to find the one on the right first. It always finds the ones the closest. So did you get 1.121? And if you want to find the one on the left, you're going to have to move your cursor closer to the one on the left. And you get negative 3.1. So the ones you can do for practice here are all of 7, sorry, and 5B.